Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Veguilla-Lezan if you're new here, and I am the creative behind the Freelance Life. This is a channel where you can find tons of different creative tutorials relating to things like graphic design, surface pattern design, illustration, and tech videos relating to software like Affinity Designer, Affinity Photo, and in this week's video we're going to be talking about Clip Studio Paint. So a few months ago I downloaded Clip Studio Paint Pro and I did a kind of run through where I basically showed the different brushes and some of the different panels and menu options within Clip Studio Paint. And I did a fun little draw with me of like, I think I made a deer or something. I was working on like a spring Easter related concept for some sticker packs and illustrations, and I did one of them in Clip Studio Paint. So today we are going to continue on the Clip Studio Paint journey. I actually just upgraded. They're running a huge sale on their website right now. This is not sponsored, it's just I really like this software because of a project that I'm working on related to a book, and I found that it looks like Clip Studio Paint is going to be an all-encompassing thing where I can keep my workflow really simple. I can illustrate in it, I can lay it out because of the different features that they have in the software. So I wanted something that would make my process really streamlined. I started character illustrations and things like that and backgrounds in Procreate, which is something that I use when I'm on the go, but I'm trying to make it a point to work at my desk and stick to my work hours, especially during the summer, and not be working on my iPad on the go so much. So keeping everything all in one piece of software seemed like a really easy way for me to just work on this particular project for this kid book concept that I have. So what we're going to be doing today, we are going to work on a draw with me when it comes to a character that I'm trying to concept out for this story. That is an Abuelita. And I know I've said this before, I am Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican, and I've had this concept for a book that I've been working on that's kind of semi-inspired by some experiences in the summertime of my own personal life and journey with my family. So I'm gonna be working on the Abuelita character today. I already have some concept sketches of her. I might make some modifications in Clip Studio Paint, and then I want to basically paint her, create her, and then maybe look at some of the menu options for setting up like the book layout for the measurements that I'm gonna create my book mock-up in. So basically I'm going to create a dummy and I'm going to use Clip Studio Paint to do that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to dive into it more, so let's jump in and check this out. I'm looking forward to creating with you, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to want to do obviously is launch Clip Studio Paint. This is what the interface looks like, and what I'm going to do is go into File and select Open. I'm just going to work on the sketches first before I do anything with the actual like layout setup. I'm not really going to work on any backgrounds or anything like that, but I at least want to show you the different options you have when we do that part. But for now, what I want to do is just work on coloring and refining the Abuelita character that I worked on. And while we do that, while you draw with me, because it's kind of boring, I think, just watching people draw, or maybe you like that and I'll do some of that and throw some music over it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about this project that I'm working on. I'm not gonna spill all of the beans because obviously it's something that I really want to pitch to publish, but I want to share some of the inspiration and kind of give you guys an insider's view into my childhood, because that's kind of what the whole basis of this is about. It's kind of inspired by my childhood, and I know I've shared my story on this channel here in the past, and I've shared my story in other like classes that I've done for Skillshare and here on YouTube, but obviously I've shared kind of like the darker parts of my story, and I grew up with, I had a tough childhood, but that's not to say that it was all sad and gloom. There was a lot of beautiful, joyful moments in my life, And I think it's important to highlight that, especially for kids, for youth who grow up in the city, especially in our city in Chicago. There's a lot of gun violence and this negativity that surrounds our city, but there's also some beautiful, beautiful things in the city of Chicago, and a lot of youth grow up with beautiful experiences. And that's not to say that they aren't exposed to things like violence and gang violence and things like that, and there's definitely structural racism and things that need to be changed and overcome, but there's also some beautiful things in the history of growing up in the inner city, and that's kind of what I wanted to showcase with this book. Touch on the lives of people who have experienced things like that, especially growing up in an inner city or in an urban place, whether it be Chicago or New York or Miami or places like LA. So that is what we're going to do while we draw. So enough with the talking. I'm going to set up a new file. I'm going to open my most recent concept. What's nice is, like I said, I was working on some of these ideas in Procreate, but you can export Procreate files as PSD files, and you're able to open those PSD files in Clip Studio Paint. But I already saved the concept I was working on, so I'm just going to open that up, and this is just the Abuelita. I mean, it's not perfect. It's really rough. I was just trying to get proportions down and figure out what I wanted this woman to look like. I kind of want her to be inspired by my Abuelita, who is an absolutely beautiful woman. I'll put up a video here. She passed away a long, long time ago, over 20 years now, since she's passed away, but I wanted to kind of emulate her without exactly drawing her. And my abuela was younger, so I didn't want her to feel too aged, but I still wanted to, you know, like highlight that she is an older grandma. And I'm just thinking about like what an abuelita would wear in the 90s. My grandma, especially because the idea is that this is set in the city of Chicago on a really hot summer day. Like, we were prone to getting heat waves in the 90s, and that's something that's still happening today. And so I was thinking, like, my abuela would wear shorts and a tank top. That's what she would wear. She would pull her hair back. She had beautiful curly hair. It was shorter, but like she liked to like pull it back. So I kind of pulled in that concept of like those like hair nets. It's not exactly a hair net, but and it's not something my abuela would always wear, but it's definitely something that you see is very common in the Latinx community during that era. So I was pulling that in, and then the idea is that she's coming from going grocery shopping. So I had some, like, when she's introduced in the story, she's coming home from going to the corner store early in the morning. And that's a big thing in our community, corner stores, or if you're in New York, you know them as bodegas. We have a lot of that here in Chicago as well. And there was a corner store, Tony's Corner Store, that was right on our street. So she wasn't going very far, but it was something she would do. You know, in the city, we would often just go daily to the store, get what we needed for that day, whether it be for breakfast or like any of the comida, like the food that we needed, we would get that day of. So I'm just thinking about, what is she gonna look like from the side? What's she gonna look like from the front? I'll do a back view. Probably not gonna work on that in this video because I just want to refine what I already have. And then some accessories that go with it, like her grocery bags. And then I'm just thinking of like a really simple nose for her. And just really, I'm going to stick to kind of like the cartoony eyes as I work on these concepts. That's kind of what I have for the other characters. So I'm just trying to age them up a bit though, adding things like crow's feet and stuff like that. And then I just want to clean up these final areas like her hands. And I just want to make sure everything makes sense in terms of proportion. And then this is just obviously the sketch, and then I'm going to go on top of it, create a new layer, and clean up with the inking lines. And I'm just kind of thinking about what can be in these bags. Obviously pan, which is bread. My abuela would make us pan y queso and huevos every morning, which is bread, eggs, and like bread and cheese and eggs. So I wanted to think about like those little, yeah, and yes, my abuela Sofia's here, by the way, in the background. Yes, she asked me if my abuela would make me Puerto Rican rice, and yes, that's how my mom learned how to make it, and then I learned from my mom. But arroz con pollo, arroz con gandules, those are all very like predominantly Puerto Rican dishes that are pretty relatively famous. If you go to any kind of like big time restaurant that maybe serves Puerto Rican food, you're gonna see that on the menu. Arroz con pollo, which is rice and chicken. Arroz con gandules, which is like rice and pigeon peas. And they're just like beans. That's what they are. I know the name sounds weird, pigeon peas, but they're beans. So I was just kind of thinking, what could I put in here? So fruit, some veggies, and then of course loaves of bread. And we would have either like bolero bread or like just long French bread that she would cut up into pieces for us to eat. This character is probably, aside from the characters inspired by like me and my family, this is the character that is one of the most important characters in my opinion for this, because she's inspired by one of my favorite people, my abuelita. So I think I have the basic sketch done. I want her, I feel like her face feels a little masculine here, so I'm going to clean this up a bit. And what's nice is when you select your like eraser tools, you can adjust like your brush sizes, brush density, even the brush type that you're using for your eraser. Like if you're working in a pencil with like a pencil brush, you'll probably want to use the like pencil kneaded eraser type eraser tool as you're working on this. So I'm gonna name this layer as well. I'm gonna right click that layer, and then I'm gonna update it to be my sketch layer. So now that I have that sketch layer, I'm actually gonna create a new layer. Go into my layers menu in the top, and I'm gonna select new raster layer. I'm gonna make sure that layer is on top of my sketch layer. I'm gonna double click where it says layer 1, and I'm gonna rename it. And I'm gonna name this one my ink layer. And this is where we're gonna do more clean lines. I'm just gonna work on cleaning her up, and like I said, this isn't gonna be the end all be all, because often these characters will go through iterations. I may make changes in the future, but I just wanna make sure I have it at least close enough to what I want it to look like. And I'm gonna just adjust her mouth here before I start the inking. Once I can use like the lasso tool to move different elements on the screen, and then I can just go to select, deselect, and then I can go in and zoom and adjust what her mouth is gonna look like. What I want to do is just get into the inking part. What's nice with Clip Studio Paint, just like other brands like Photoshop or Affinity Photo, things like that, you can work in layers. This is a raster based program, but they do have the option of creating vector style artwork in here as well. So this is a really good like all-encompassing piece of software. But what I want to do is create another raster layer and ink on top of this to clean up my lines. My lines are very sketchy, kind of messy. That's just kind of how I sketch, and then I go back through and I refine and clean up. So what we need to do now is on this new inking layer that I've created, I'm going to utilize my pen tool. And unlike the pen tool in something like Illustrator or Affinity Designer, this is just like a pen style tool. It's not like a vector based pen tool where you're using points to create shapes. So they have all kinds of different pen options: the G pen, real G pen, calligraphy, tapered, textured pen. I like this textured pen because it gives me a really nice kind of like graphic style, comic-y feel for the outlines. So I'm going to utilize that one, and then I'm going to adjust my brush size. I think this is a good one, and then I'm going to go back to my original sketch layer, and I'm going to put the opacity down so that it isn't so dark and it's not going to get confusing as I'm redrawing the lines on top. So I'm going to select that layer. I'm going to go into my opacity options. You'll see there's like a slider and 100 next to it. this is where you can lower or adjust your opacity. So I'm just going to bring it down to about 45%, and then making sure I'm on the inking layer, I'm going to start to clean up my line work over here. And I'm going to start with this left side facing Abuelita. so now that I look at this abuela, I think she's super cute. I really, really like how she turned out. I mean, it's not 100% perfect, but it's a good, quick sketch. Not that it was quick, because I've been working on this for probably a couple of hours by this point. But she's brought to life. So basically, I have the abuela character brought to life by working on these concept sketches, and then I'll be able to put her into the layouts within the book. And really quickly, before I let you guys go, I want to showcase how I've started kind of creating, you can create a mock-up in Clip Studio Paint. What's nice is let's save this first. I'm going to file, save as, abuela concept, and my character inspo file. But what I'm going to do next is basically start to place these characters and key elements within kind of like a mock-up. So first I want to show you, I have kind of like a set of thumbnails that I've created where I'm starting to place characters, do quick sketches. These are really rough, not very nice looking. Some of them are because I worked on bigger and then I made them smaller. So I was realizing I want to at least flesh out the story. But basically I'm laying out my spreads in this way. But what's really nice is that with Clip Studio Paint, you can create a multi-spread layout and draw in it. So let me close this one. I already saved abuela, so we can go into File, New. If you look at the use of work with Clip Studio Paint, you can do this in Clip Studio Paint Pro or in Clip Studio Paint EX, which is what I have, which is the level above, which allows for multi-page layouts. You can transport and export. You can export things to end-use products like webtoons or zines or comics. So in this case, you could do all kinds of different options. You can do like the printing of a fanzine, and they have already pre-made templates. But in our case, we would likely want to just select the comic option, and then you can adjust your unit sizes in your settings so that you're not just working in millimeters. You can select inches and things like that, but you can adjust the width and the height of your actual binding and of your layout. You can add your bleed width, you can add your resolution, and then what you would want to do is select multiple pages and then update the number of pages you want to have. So say you're going to do a traditional kids picture book, 32 pages. It's going to be bound from the left. It's going to be read from left to right, so you want the binding on the left. What you would want to do is combine it into 2-page spreads so that you can see what they look like, kind of how I had those thumbnails set up. And then you can hit OK, and it'll allow you to create this file, and you can see the layouts, and you can work on them individually, work on the artwork. Everything is all in one file, and it just makes things so much easier versus like exporting it, then placing into something like InDesign or Affinity Publisher, working on it in Procreate, or working on it in whatever software you use. This just makes it easier and streamlines the whole process. So you're doing everything all in one go, everything all in one software. So I like this. I think this is a fun tool. I'm going to be utilizing it a lot in the coming months as I continue to work on this book concept. And I'm really happy with how Abuelita turned out. I've already created the character of, you know, the brother and the sister. She's the third character in the lineup. I have a handful more left to draw. But I wanted to kind of bring you along on this journey as I work on this project and as I start to kind of like bring to life these ideas and these characters. And hopefully in the next, who knows, year or so, I will have something to show you all, and maybe hopefully in the next 6 months or so, I'll have something that I can start pitching. All right, so I hope that you all found that kind of like draw with me, chill vibe type video helpful, and that you gained some new perspective when it comes to the Clip Studio Paint software. Like I said, I really like the idea of having a streamlined work process, and Clip Studio Paint seems to be that when it comes to this particular project. That's not to say that I'm gonna give up any of the other software I use. I'm still going to be working in Procreate. I'm still going to be using all the Affinity pieces of software like Publisher and Designer and Affinity Photo for all of the things that they are great for. But when it comes to this book project, I think Clip Studio Paint is going to be a really smart way for me to keep everything all in one file and in one kind of like software, so I don't have to be working all over the place. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch and to draw alongside with me. I hope you get some time to create this week. And as always, thank you for your support. But if you're not already, make sure you subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content. And hey, share if you're working on any projects in Clip Studio Paint in the comments below, and I'll make sure to give you guys a like. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.